Hey guys, so as most of you are probably aware, I went on holiday to Bermuda probably about a month ago now, and I still haven't finally actually gone through the whole story of the holiday from hell. So the first part of the flight was fine. We were getting a flight from Edinburgh to JFK in New York as a stopover, and that went perfectly fine. There wasn't much to complain about, and indeed there wasn't much to rave about. The airline was perfectly fine. It was okay. So we arrived in JFK and we probably had about 4 hours stopover time. So instead we just milled about the airport, had dinner, looked around the shops, that kind of thing. So it gets to about an hour before our flight is due, and so we go over to the gate and the flight has been delayed by another hour. Now that's kind of regular. That's happened to me before when I've flown through America or to America, so it wasn't that big a deal. 1 hour you can deal with. But then just as that hour is ending, we get another announcement telling us that the plane will now be another hour late. And now the airline have started making excuses for weather, there's a mechanical issue, and if we fly after a certain time, the flight crew will be going over their flight hours. Now all three of those reasons are perfectly adequate reasons not to fly a plane. However, giving us all three of the reasons makes you doubt which one of those reasons are actually true, if any of them. So when our flight was meant to take off at about 4, we've now been told that 7:30 is the decision time. So it gets to about 7:30 and the airline finally announces that we are going to be boarding the plane momentarily. Woo! So we finally get on the plane, sit down, strap ourselves in, and there's a little bit of rain outside. And when everyone's finally on the plane, the captain comes over the tannoy system and says that we have to wait another 20 minutes because we're waiting for a storm to pass. Now, I'm not a weather expert, but to me it just looked like some rain. So we're waiting, and waiting, and waiting some more. And after about 40 minutes of waiting, the captain finally comes back on the tannoy and says, "Sorry for the inconvenience, your flight hasn't been cancelled, it's just been delayed till 7:30 in the morning tomorrow." But not only that, our checked luggage is being held hostage, as they tell us that all checked luggage will stay on the plane, so we have no pyjamas, no toothbrush, no clothes, no chargers, no nothing. We literally only have our carry-on items and the stuff that we're wearing. So the whole plane gets off and goes to the airline's desk, and they're trying to organise hotels for us to stay overnight. And we stand in a queue of angry people for about an hour and a half before we even move, and we finally get to the front and get given a voucher for a hotel and a voucher for a taxi to get there. And then we go to stand outside with 2 other people who are going to the same hotel as us. And there are no taxis because at this point it's about 10:30, and we wait for about half an hour for a taxi to finally show up. So we get in this taxi and head off to wherever our hotel is. And we're driving, and we're still driving, and we're driving an hour later, and we finally end up in Staten Island. Now, I didn't know the geography of New York beforehand, but now I know that JFK's like this side of New York and Staten Island is the entire other side. It's closer to the Newark airport than it is to JFK. But anyway, we finally end up in this hotel, and we go to the desk and present the vouchers, and they give us our room keys and some toothbrushes and things like that. And as we're leaving, we find out the 2 other men that were in the taxi with us going to the same hotel, the airline haven't even booked them a room at that hotel. They've just sent him to that hotel. They literally couldn't even count the numbers of the people that were on their plane to book the right amount of rooms at each hotel. Thankfully there was another hotel in the same complex area, so they just have to cross the road basically and they go to a different hotel. And by this point it's like 12 o'clock, probably almost 1 o'clock. Now our flight was at 7:30 the next morning. They always tell you to get there an hour early, so that's 6:30. It took us an hour to get from where we were to the airport, so that adds an hour to your journey, which is 5:30. And then if you add on the fact that 5:30 is starting to get near kind of business hours where people might start driving to work, you have to add on at least another 40 minutes for any kind of traffic. So basically we're getting up at like 4 and getting in a taxi. We literally only have 3 hours sleep. So the next morning we pile into this taxi again at 4 o'clock and head off towards the airport. And when we finally get through security and look up at the big board telling you about all the flights and what gate they're at, we look up and find the flight to Bermuda is now boarding. Now at this point it's probably only 6 o'clock, 6:30 at most, so we're thinking this is a bit strange, but we, you know, briskly walk towards the gate and hope that we've not missed the flight. But as we get closer to the gate, when we finally get down there, we get closer to the little screen and it says the flight has now been delayed till 9:30. So we could have got a couple of extra hours sleep, which would have made a lot of difference to all of our moods and energy. But because now we're at this airport so early in the morning, there's no shops open, but thankfully there was a Starbucks open. So we go along down to the Starbucks to get 4 cups of tea to wake us up and warm us up and stop us being as grumpy. But lo and behold, Starbucks have run out of tea bags and they only have one left. So only one of us can get a cup of tea. I end up having a chai tea and the other two have a glass of orange juice. Now in JFK it's one of those airports where a whole terminal is one airline and there are no staff from this airline anywhere. So we can't even ask them what's going on and what's happening. So it finally gets to about 9:30 and a couple more people from our flight the previous day start turning up. And then as it gets closer to 9:30, when we should be taking off, we realise there's still no plane at our gate. There's no sign of any airline staff, so we're probably not getting a plane at 9:30. So it finally gets to around 10 o'clock and our flight has been delayed till about 10:30. And finally some airline staff appear, and about 10 minutes after that they tell us that our plane has now been switched to another plane because of the mechanical problems that were on the previous plane. So we ask one of the airline staff, will our bags be on there because you kept our checked luggage? And the woman says they should be on that plane. So by about 11 o'clock we are finally on this plane. We managed to get to Bermuda, but when we arrive we find out that we are now behind 3 other full planes of passengers through customs. Now Bermuda's a pretty small island, so it doesn't have a very big airport, and most of the time when you come in on a plane you're probably the only plane there at that time, so it's only your plane that's going through customs. And because of that they don't have a very big customs area, it's quite small. They only have about 4 or 5 people on desks. So as we arrive behind these 3 other planes, my dad phones up a taxi company and arranges for a taxi, because we know when we get out at the other side there isn't going to be any taxis left. And when we come out of customs there is a man holding a little sign with our second name on it, which just makes our hearts leap because finally one piece of our journey has gone right. Now by this point it's about dinner time, so we just head back to the apartment, we go and collect our mopeds and we just go straight for dinner. So the next day we spend as much time in the sun as we can because we've basically missed a day of our holiday. Now at the end of that night my feet are looking a little bit pink and I think, oh, I haven't put enough sun cream on them today, I'll make sure to put more on tomorrow. But by the next day they're pretty red looking, and by the end of that day they've started to swell up and get quite sore. And by day 3 I can barely walk, my feet have gone purple, I look like I have elephant for feet, and everything I try to do with my feet is just painful. So we go to a pharmacist and they suggest it might be water lice. However, my feet aren't scratching, they're not itchy, but it definitely looked like an allergic reaction to something. So they sell us this anti-itch cream which cools the skin down but really doesn't help the issue. I still have swollen feet, my feet still look purple, and I'm in a lot of pain because I can't really walk. So then on the Sunday we go to a different pharmacist and she suggests that it might be cellulitis, which in case you don't know is a really bad infection and it can also be quite dangerous. And so she suggests to take me to A&E. So that's exactly what we do. We spend the next 4 or 5 hours sitting in an A&E room whilst the doctor comes in, takes my blood, wanders off to go test it, and I'll just sit there for the next wee while. And after doing all the blood tests, he comes back in, pokes my feet some more and says, yeah, we don't really know what's wrong with your feet. Your blood tests are fine. We don't know what's wrong with your feet. So we thank the doctor for his time and we go out, and in America you have to pay for your health care. Thankfully we have travel insurance, but you still have to pay up front and then you claim it back later. So we go up to the desk to pay for all of this time spent in A&E, and it comes to about $970. Literally for sitting in a room doing nothing for 4 hours while they test my blood, and for me not even to get told what's actually wrong with my feet. We still don't know what's wrong with my feet. So they basically prescribed me some antibiotics and antihistamines just in case there's an infection and just in case it's an allergic reaction. But by this point it's like 6 or 7 o'clock at night, so there's no pharmacies open and the hospital don't have a pharmacy in the hospital. So we have to wait till the day afterwards to go to a pharmacy and pick up drugs. And you don't get those free either. You have to pay for those as well and claim that back later as well. So all in all, my treatment for inflamed feet was over $1,000, which is a lot for just swelling of the feet. Basically, since we've come home, we think it was probably a heat rash or heat allergy of some kind of sun allergy type thing. But basically, having swollen feet, I couldn't really do much. I had to stay out the sun. I could barely walk, so I couldn't really do any long distance walking or cycling or horse riding or anything like that. The trip on the way back was a lot easier. We got the flight home pretty fine, we got the flight from JFK pretty fine, and we got back home, back to Scotland pretty fine. And never before have I ever been as sorry to say that I just wanted to be home. I couldn't wait to just get home and lie in bed and eat chocolate, which is bad when you've spent a lot of money going to a tropical island to see great, fantastic things you might only see on that one island. That was the holiday from hell, or 24 hours in JFK. There's a number of different names for this holiday, but it was definitely not the best. Anyway guys, if you have anything to add about your own personal holidays this year or any bad holiday experiences or travel experiences you've had, feel free to share. And I hope you're having a great day and that you've not got swollen feet and that you're having a nice time if you're on holiday or if you're just at home. I'll see you next time guys. Bye!